All right, let's go over a really common rebuttal or objection that you're going to get out there. It's something that people throw out there thinking it is just going to end you pursuing trying to get their business. And it's totally common in the industry. It's I'm in a contract, So how do we overcome early termination fees? They're very common in the industry. You're going to hear this all the time. So it's very important to get good at overcoming this rebuttal. So I'm in a contract. What do we say when that comes out of somebody's mouth? Pretty simple, okay? Just assume they're in a contract. So if I'm talking with a merchant, I'm going over the program, I'm like, yeah. Well, I'm in a contract right now. Okay. Well, I just assume that you're in a contract. Every time I'm talking to a business owner, that's how this industry works. That's just something I assume. And if I couldn't work with business owners in contracts, I wouldn't be in business. That's just how this industry works. So I'm actually under the assumption before you even said that was going to be the case. The good news is breaking this down is simply math, okay? I don't want to sit and waste your time. If I can't show you that you'd be over $3,000 per year more profitable after any sort of contracts and us helping you take care of that, then I'll walk out right now. But let me at least show you the math so you can understand that contract doesn't have to necessarily bind you. If you're in business to be more profitable, there's ways around that, and you can still be thousands of dollars ahead. This is a very common objection, so it's very important that you get good at these rebuttals and make this second nature. I just assume that you're in a contract. That's totally normal in this industry. If I couldn't deal with business owners in contracts, I wouldn't be in business because it's just that normal. The good news is all we're talking about is math. It's not an opinion. It's not anything. And if I can't show you that you're a minimum of $3,000 more profitable after any of that kind of stuff even comes into play, then I'll walk out of here. But let's at least use logic and do some math. Now we really need to know what the math is. We need to know what their early termination is and how much we're saving them. Those are the two factors that we need in order to overcome this using logic, which is what's going to actually get the deal. You can get these all day long. You just need to understand the math. So what is the math? How do we get to what their early termination fee is? Well, first of all, if somebody's telling you they're in a contract, they probably know that because they've considered switching at some point, whether it was recently or in the past, and they probably at some point contacted their provider and found out they were in a contract. Or they're just telling you they're in a contract thinking that you're going to leave, okay? But if you actually rebuttal this and try to get in there, say, well, you probably at one point considered switching to save money. That's probably how you know you're in a contract, right? Do you remember how much the early termination fee was? Because you seem to know what you're talking about and you seem to be confident that you're in a contract. If they don't remember, which is going to be very convenient for them not to remember those numbers, this is the point where you need to get good at this. They are busy, and if you expect them to stop what they're doing to find out what their early termination fee is, your ratio of getting this rebuttal to a deal is very low. So you need to just assume they're going to be too busy. Let them know that you can contact their processor. There's probably a phone number on the side of their terminal. Literally tell them, I don't expect you to stop everything you're doing. I came in unannounced, but we do need to get the answers so that you can make an educated business decision here. So how about you go back to work? I'm going to call them. I'm going to get them on the phone. So at least when I walk out of here, whether we do business or not, at least you know what the real numbers are and you know what the actual math is. So please don't stop what you're doing. Let me get them on the horn. I'll flag you over. Seriously, go back to work. I'll get them on the phone if you're okay with that. Let's get the number. A lot of people be like, you know what? Sure, give them a call. And they'll turn off and they'll go back to work. Perfect. Get their processor on the phone. Now, once you get their processor on their phone, they are going to ask to verify some stuff. That's when you flag the business owner back over. Just throw them on the phone, and their processor is going to start verifying they are the owner, and then they will naturally know what you're calling for and say, hey, am I in a contract? How much is it? How much to get out, right? And you can prep them before that. I would encourage you kind of prep them a little bit, but just get them on the phone, and the answers will come out naturally, okay? By doing it that way, they're going to respect it a lot. If you cannot get them on the phone, if for some reason they are interested, but for some reason we can't get them on the phone, you've been sitting on hold for too long, let's start painting the worst case scenario. I will tell you right now with experience that when someone's in a contract, the early termination fee with the processor is on average between $300 to $600. They can be less than $300. They're not normally over $600 to cancel the processing. So aim high. Tell them on average it's $300 to $600, but let's use 1,000. Okay, let's make this worst case scenario and just assume that it's $1,000 to get out. At this point, you need to know what their savings are, because you're going to know what their early termination fee is, probably between $300 and $600, or we're going to do math with them under a worst case scenario. Let's just call it 1,000, even though it's not going to even be that much. Okay, so now it's time to do the math. When I say do the math, what I'm talking about is actually doing the math in writing on paper, giving them an option A, option B scenario on paper. They can't argue math, okay? And since your application should already be out far before you get to this rebuttal, your application is out on the counter or table or wherever you're standing. Flip it over. There's your blank white piece of paper. That's where you're going to do this math with them, okay? So we're going under the scenario of $1,000 early termination fee. Here's option A, Mr. Merchant. We're saving you $350, okay? Right now your bill is $440. After the $90 flat unlimited processing, you're going to save $350 a month. Multiply that by 24. Let's assume there's 24 months on your contract, or they told you there's 24 months on your contract. That's going to be $8,400 over the next 2 years. Yes, there's going to be an early termination fee. It's going to be $1,000. That early termination fee is literally going to pay for itself within 3 months. Now, if you're in a 24-month contract, why would you write out that other 21 months? Okay, you're going to be $7,400 in the black, $7,400 in the profit. By eating that $1,000 now, long term, you're going to make way more. And then there's a second option. The second option is to continue doing what you're already doing and pay that $440. Remember that $350, we deducted the $90 cost. What they were actually paying was $440. So $440 times 12 puts you in the red at $10,560. When you get to this point, you're on paper, you have an option A on the top or the left and an option B on the bottom or the right, right? Imagine on a piece of paper. This is written out, basic math. At this point, hand them the pen and say, which one makes more sense as a business owner here to make a profit? Do you want $7,400 in the black or $10,500 in the red? Circle which one makes more sense for you. Nobody that is running a business for a profit is going to circle $10,500 in the red over $7,400 in the black. The whole point of running a business is to be in the black. Which one of these is a more logical decision as a business owner? And when you make them get involved, actually look at that and say, seriously, circle the one that's more logical. You're starting to take away that rebuttal. This business is about completely taking away rebuttals and making it almost like nonsense, right? Like we just made it nonsense, like so irrational to think that $1,000 early termination fee should hold them hostage. That is no longer rational after doing this math. Now, occasionally you're going to run into people that call in to find out what their early termination fee is and are quoted a really high and outrageous amount. Okay, early termination fees, there's an early termination fee with the actual processor, which is what we're talking about here. And then if somebody was put into a lease, right? A lease is a separate company. It is a leasing company. They're making a payment for the credit card terminal specifically. So if somebody calls in and they get quoted, if you cancel, it's going to cost you $2,700 or $2,500. A really high number. Folks, the average early termination with the processors between 300 and 600. If they're getting some really high outrageous number, they're actually being quoted at what it would cost to close the lease. This is important to understand. I don't want to make it complicated, but it's very important to understand the leasing is separate. And if you ever get somebody that's quoted that high, we need to explain to them, we can close your current credit card processor, which has a very small, if any, early termination fee. And as far as the lease goes, now let's talk about that scenario. That's a totally different scenario, and it's a totally separate company. You don't actually have to cancel the lease to make this happen. So let's go over that. This is moldable. As a business owner in this business, in this industry, this is moldable. You guys can move numbers around and make things work. So here's what we do with leases and early terminations combined. So here's what we do. Let's just say somebody's in a $50 lease and there's 48 months. Okay, that's 4 years left. They call in to their processor, ask what their early termination fee is. In order to scare the business owner, they're actually going to quote them what it would cost if they canceled the lease, which we're not asking them to do. So they'll say, all right, well, your lease is $50. There's 48 months left. You're looking at $2,400. That's really good retention tool. It's really misleading because they don't need to cancel the lease. They're only canceling their processing, which is separate from the leasing company. So when someone's in a lease, you want to verify that and show them that's your lease payment. And it's accurate. If you were to cancel your lease, it would be very expensive. So we have a couple options. Option A, cancel your lease and you do have to pay that full early termination fee. That's your agreement. There's nothing we can do about that. Or option B, let's keep the lease open. You can cancel your credit card processor, but not cancel the lease. They are two separate companies. And if you keep your lease open, you are going to pay for a dead horse. You're going to be paying $50 a month for a terminal that you're no longer going to use. However, your savings are so far ahead. And in order to sweeten this for you, we'll cover that lease for you. So you're not going to cancel the lease. You're going to continue paying that $50 a month. And what I'll do is instead of charging $90 a month, let me lower that to $25 for you. And that is our way of paying for your dead horse. Do not go cancel your lease, because if you do, you're going to pay the full lease term amount. But by keeping it open and just paying that monthly fee, I'm going to lower this on this end. We're the one that's actually going to pay for that dead horse. And the math on the last slide will still be true to you. And we will save you far over $3,000 like I planned. All over an early termination fee. You're not trapped. You just feel like you are. But math shows that being trapped is the wrong decision.